Hello and welcome to yet a new episode of Celebrating Cinema.
Yay!
Yay! A podcast for the love of cinema. I am your host, Sophie, and as always, I am joined by Tom.
Hello.
And Hugo.
Hey.
Kiriko is unfortunately not here, but we are joined by Yvonne.
Hello.
Who is our producer and normally doesn't speak, but today you will be hearing a bit from her as well.
Just a little bit.
So today we will be discussing the career of an actor that has been deemed Hollywood's most powerful celebrity twice in his lifetime.
Wow.
He's won many awards, though not including an Oscar. And Steven Spielberg, amongst others, doesn't want to work with him anymore. I would give you a second to guess who it is, but as you're listening to this episode, I'm sure you clicked on his name. So we are talking about Tom Cruise today. And his infamous or just famous, you decide, career. But before we jump into that, as always, I will ask everyone what you have watched lately.
Hugo, go
Well,
ahead.
I had a screening this week of Speed Racer, the Wachowskis film. I organized it in Amsterdam, so we saw it on the big screen. We had an introduction by media professor Dan Hassler-Forrest, and I can tell you it was a riot. It was such a fantastic film to see on the big screen. So colorful, so jumpy, so funny. So I'm still kind of like, it's a sensory overload. So I'm still kind of processing it, but it was a blast for sure.
I was so sad that I couldn't come because Dan actually inspired me to write my thesis about what I am writing it about today.
Which is?
Which is what I talked about last time. So the monsters in fantasy
Yes,
and
of course.
social exclusion, those kinds of things. I followed a course by him and I was like,
I can tell you Dan killed it as well in the intro. It was really good. And it made the film all the better. So it was a special screening, I would say.
nice.
How about you, Tom? What did you see?
So for the reopening program of our bar, Bar Strangelove, I was putting together a program of films that feature a well-known pub or alcohol beverage establishment. One of those films is Cocktail with Tom Cruise. But a very particular film I wanted to rewatch to see if it still holds up, and that was Mike Nichols' film The Birdcage, the remake of the French movie La Cage aux Folles about a gay couple with, in this case, I think it's Miami Beach nightclub, who have a son who wants to get married to the daughter of a right-wing politician, and funny stuff ensues, or complicated stuff ensues. And yes, it holds up. I was watching a hour-long video essay about how important it was for sort of normalizing queer characters in mainstream cinema, and even though Robin Williams, of course, starring as Armand Goldman or Coldman, the D is silent in Greece or something. That's the joke, I think, in the movie. He's not gay, but he does a fine job in the 90s context of things
in acting.
And I was just amazed that it's written by Elaine May, like the old partner of Mike Nichols.
Goat. Elaine May is the
Elaine
goat.
May is the goat, yes. It's written rather fantastically, and it's shot by Emmanuel Lubezki. He's like Steven Spielberg's main guy for a while, right?
Lubezki was
Yeah.
Terrence Malick's main
Terrence
guy.
Malick, that was it. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Which also, like, it starts with almost like a 6-minute one taker going through the Miami nightclub while
Dude.
We Are Family is playing.
Shut up! You sold it to me, man. Are you screening it?
Yes. I
Okay.
decided that it even though it's dated in a sort of 90s way, it's such a warm film about the clash of queer culture and, in this case, right-wing Republican, played by Gene Hackman. Gee, I miss that guy. So yeah, and then we're gonna probably do a sort of Mai Tai tie-in.
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there.
It's gonna be fun. Yvonne, how about you?
I went to the cinema yesterday and I saw Across the Spider-Verse.
How was it? I haven't seen it yet.
I didn't have big expectations, but it was actually amazing.
Nice.
I didn't even I didn't feel the time going. It was really well designed, and just the story was quite good, actually. So, yeah.
Nice.
I would recommend it.
Did you see the first one as well?
Yeah, I saw it on Monday to prepare.
Nice.
That's good.
That was
Good old
really
double
good. The
bill.
first one is also really good.
Yeah, I like that one.
I thought it was a bit overrated because people kept on talking about it, but then I saw it and I was like, wow, okay, I see what I see.
How about you?
So, as is very clear right now, I think I'm writing my thesis. So I haven't watched anything else apart from the film that I'm writing it about, which is also a Marvel film. It's called Eternals. It wasn't really well received. So
Is it the one with Harry Styles?
yes, he was in that for 1 second.
For in the post credit scene, right?
Yeah, not even the mid credits,
Yeah.
but like the post credits. Yeah, it's not.
It's the one by the director of Nomadland,
Chloe
right?
Zhao.
Yeah.
Chloe
Yeah.
Zhao, thank you.
Yeah,
Jeez.
exactly. With a
Yeah.
very big and very diverse cast that was not well received at all. It's a really, really long film, and I've watched it multiple times over the past 2 weeks, and I'm so sick of it.
That's like the dread of like writing a thesis is
Yes.
even if you do it about a thing you love, you end up maybe destroying part
Yes,
of that love
for
in the name
sure.
of science.
Yes. So I can't wait until I'm done and I can watch other
Yeah,
things.
well, bless your heart and Godspeed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, talking about destroying the self and representing something
Hey,
else.
bridge,
Here,
bridge,
let's
bridge,
talk
bridge.
about Tom Cruise.
But before we do, let me get my glasses because I'm also aging. I must have been 10 or 11. It was the summer of 2003. Me and my friend were allowed to finally go to the movies by ourselves, to go and watch the Tom Cruise starring historic epic, The Last Samurai. As fans of both The Samurai and Tom Cruise, we were massively excited. We giddily biked to the cinema, a notorious one in the town I was born in, for it was right in the city center, in the middle of a kind of run-down, sad shopping mall you don't see that often anymore. The mall had the reputation of being inhabited by the addicts and the homeless, and I remember vividly that we were quite nervous when we passed the entrance heading to the cinema. Little did we know that we were nervous for all the wrong reasons. Because to our surprise, we weren't allowed to buy a ticket for The Last Samurai, as we were a year too young to see the film without adult supervision. Rarely have I been so disappointed in my life as with the draconian censorship laws of the Dutch non-profit organization called Kijkwijzer. You could say the experience was humiliating, a stark reminder that we were in fact still boys. The heroism of Tom Cruise seemed far removed from our everyday lives suddenly, but the hope of seeing this action hero on the big screen lingered. And of course, we went back later, with adult supervision this time, and we were delighted with what we saw. Samurai and soldiers, guns and katanas, and of course, Tom Cruise chewing the Japanese scenery. Even after the long wait, the film, and especially Tom Cruise, strapped in his samurai armor, still delivered. You could say The Last Samurai has a questionable legacy now. Its white savior narrative is not entirely current, of course, and yet my mind occasionally drifts back to it, for it's maybe the perfect film to take a crack at the mythos and pathos of Tom Cruise. Not only The Last Samurai, but also the last real movie star. We've often lamented the current and pitiful state of mainstream blockbusters in this podcast, and we have all the right reasons for it. Cinema as a spectacle is losing its powers. Films that can convince multiple generations to go to the movie theaters in droves are few and far between. Even bankable stars can't save the dreadful and uninspired remakes, premakes, prequels, sequels, and other nonsensical multiverse malarkey that is slipping through the projectors like cholesterol in the arteries. And yet, amidst the rummage of this new and failing Hollywood, there is still one man, one myth, one legend, who promises to deliver. His name is Tom Cruise, 60-year-old and still making some of the most spectacular mainstream movies America can produce at this point. I am currently anxiously awaiting the new installment of his Mission Impossible series, and that same feeling of giddy returns. That feeling that I had when I biked with my friend to see The Last Samurai is taking hold of me again. Ever since I saw him in the first Mission Impossible, he's never ceased to amaze me actually. Here's an actor who makes acting in mainstream movies seem effortless. More often than not, he got the parts that actually accentuate his sly charisma. Like when he's pool talent Vincent in Martin Scorsese's The Color of Money, or jet fighter pilot Maverick in Tony Scott's Top Gun, and of course Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible series, kickstarted brilliantly by Brian De Palma. But occasionally, Cruise is turned and lured into showing a different side of himself. The sexual anxiety of Eyes Wide Shut, the existential torment of Vanilla Sky, and the deep melancholy of War of the Worlds are palpable exactly because it's superstar Tom Cruise playing in these roles. Sure, we can talk about his controversial allegiance to the Church of Scientology or his manic episodes on TV, but such moments feel like mere footnotes in the larger picture that Tom Cruise is now painting. The demise of blockbuster cinema and his last crusade to rescue the movies themselves. Tom Cruise is now the masked man who shouts, "The movies are back," in a video in which he sneaks in to see Christopher Nolan's Tenet amidst the COVID pandemic. He's the guy that sends out PSAs to boomer dads all across the world that they should fix the motion smoothing on their TVs. He's the guy that does stunts in airplanes before screaming in the camera, "See you at the movies." And at the movies we will see him, as we will still come to see what Tom Cruise conjures up on the big screen. Simply put, he is Hollywood incarnate, one of the few that still lives and breathes that bit of magic that movie making comes from. He knows that spectacle can be a massive stunt, that he often does himself, or can just be one well-timed swooning squint in the direction of the camera. He truly is the last samurai, fighting for a dying empire and willing to die for it himself. And I am here to witness it all on the big screen along with him.
Woo! Jesus!
That was my big love letter, maybe.
He's the Messiah reborn!
Yeah, well, that's actually what I kind of wanted to talk about with you guys in this episode. That, you know, for in this time that we're living in now, it seems like Tom Cruise has turned into a kind of Jesus figure for cinema itself. But before we maybe get to that bigger part of the story, I wanted to ask if you ever had that same moment, maybe when you were young, where you saw him for the first time and figured, well, here's a movie star.
I think the first Tom Cruise movie I saw was Mission Impossible.
Simple game. Is he serious?
Always.
It's much worse than you think.
We're being ambushed. Abort, that's an order. They knew we were coming. Do you read me?
I don't care how he did it. I want to know why he did it. You're worried about me. Why you survived.
I'm sure we can find something I have that you need.
No one sent me.
These guys are trained to be ghosts. Let's not waste time chasing after him. Let's make him come to us. Find something that's personally important to him and you squeeze.
And how did that land with you? Did you like it?
I was so young. I was like so impressed. I was like, wow, he's doing all these stunts and it's looking so crazy and he's gonna do what he came to do, you know? So, yeah.
I don't think I remember what the first time was I saw him. I think a very clear memory that I have of watching one of his films was the Mummy remake with my parents. And after we saw it, my mom very loudly declared that she was never watching a Tom Cruise film ever again.
But that film is
But that's like
really bad.
I like gracefully skirted over some of the films that could be seen as quite questionable as well, and are maybe part of some of the problems that I were actually illustrating.
The best thing about the Mummy remake was that when they started the promotional campaign, they were so uninvolved apparently that the studio released a trailer without any sound except for people screaming. So in the beginning of the it's one of the funniest things ever. You just see like there's an airplane crash at the beginning of the trailer, and you just see like people
there's
going
like
through
no
a plane,
sound
but there's
effects.
no sound. So it's like almost like a shredding, like somebody shreds, like somebody puts wrong sound on it, and you just see like Tom Cruise going like
Oh my god.
No.
That was such a comic moment. I think it also, films like this motivated him maybe back into a bit more of a quote-unquote quality control, because you literally in Hollywood at this point, maybe your bankability is as much as the last couple of films that you've been successful in. And more, which I also said, you know, actors and actresses lend themselves to big IP movies, you know, to major franchise films that seem to be really failing. You know, there's a lot of major films this summer going into the blockbuster circuit that are actually not performing well. So this idea that if you're a big star, you're an automatic cash generator doesn't really apply anymore. And I think he also had to learn that the hard way with a film like the Mummy remake, that you can also actually fall very flat on your face.
As I am the oldest person at the table, even though you are now wearing your glasses. That's ageist, isn't it? Yeah. I can suck this conversation back into time, because if like the last samurai is where it starts for you, but like where it starts for me is Rain Man.
Wow, yeah, different times.
Like,
yeah, you're old.
I am old. Like Rain Man, now deeply problematic film of well, I don't know how you do that film ever again, but multi-award-winning film about a guy who sort of actually kind of misuses his autistic brother to at one point win a lot of money in a casino. That's a really young Tom Cruise. And then for me, and I think after that you have, I was looking this up because I can't remember things. Oh yeah, and A Few Good Men. The absolute banger with Jack Nicholson and Demi Moore, and such a great fucking film.
Lieutenant Kendrick ordered the code red, didn't he? Because that's what you told Lieutenant Kendrick to do.
Object! And when it went bad, you cut these guys loose! Your Honor, you had Marcus inside a phony transport! Your Honor, you doctored the logbook! Damn it, Captain! You coerced the doctor!
Consider yourself in contempt!
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
And not Mission Impossible for me. I one of the things that, I don't know, but maybe this is mini movie cinema obsession session, Tom, is that a thing that I sometimes randomly say is red light, green light, which is the chewing gum that he gets in the beginning of the film. That when the compounds are combined, they explode.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's in such a beautiful Hitchcockian way. De Palma shows you all the way at the beginning of the film when he's there with the guy like Kittredge, the guy from the. What does he do? It's CIA, right? He's CIA.
He's CIA.
So to explain to him how what is happening to the mission that they're on is all going haywire, blah blah blah, and then he combines the chewing gum and then puts it on an aquarium, and the entire restaurant sort of explodes. And then all the way at the end of the film, he does the same thing when the helicopter with Jean Reno is like following him on the train in a tunnel. Really? Okay.
Wait, a helicopter goes into a tunnel?
Oh, yes. We should explain this. Like the big set piece at the end of the first Mission Impossible film is that, spoiler, Jean Reno is a traitor, and he's going to kill him, and he's flying a helicopter which Cruise connects with a chain to the train, so the helicopter can't go anyway, and it's like flying behind the train.
Oh, like
but then
on
the
the
train
same
goes
level.
into a tunnel, so he has to sort of put
Wow.
down
Join the train in the
so
tunnel.
the helicopter follows the train. But then Jean Reno, in this weird sort of, I'm a bad guy, I must kill you now with my helicopter. He starts like flying closer to the train, with Tom Cruise like hanging back on the last sort of train. What do you call that? Like thing?
The last wagon.
Well, last wagon, exactly. And then the sort of blades of the helicopter come closer and closer and closer. And then Cruise jumps onto the helicopter and through the window screams,
Red light! Green light!
red light, green light, and then sticks the chewing gum on the helicopter and then jumps. And of course the explosion is behind him, so he gets like
he gets thrusted
back onto the train.
Yeah, that's how it
Well,
goes. That's
baller,
movie
right?
magic.
That's
Yeah.
movie magic.
Yeah.
Always when these kinds of scenes happen, do you guys know The Lonely Island?
No.
Yeah, you mean the parody guys, yeah.
They have this song, it's called Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Always when
Yeah.
these kinds of scenes happen, I start bursting out into song, because
Yeah.
that's what you have to do.
That's exactly it.
Well,
Yeah.
but the funny thing is, that the Lonely Island thing, I think you could, that's very much based on the Michael Bay kind of style of filmmaking. It's Bad Boys, where, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith make a car
Yeah.
explode and they walk away from
Yeah.
it. And they look really fucking cool doing it, because Bay is great at making cool shots. But Bay also has this kind of like built-in irony, where it's like, look at me doing like silly movie stuff. And in some ways, I love Michael Bay, but more often than not, it seems that he sometimes doesn't even believe the things that he's doing himself. And there's maybe a very endearing aspect of Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible mostly, is where they actually believe it. They actually do it, and they're like, no, but this is Ethan Hunt. He just does all of this stuff. And that gets like more exaggerated as the series picks up, because it is always an inherently silly series, like this. Your anecdote perfectly, is a great example of that. But then the film series becomes more, in a strange way, serious, and the set pieces become more extreme, and they place a bigger emphasis on the physicality of it, and that Tom Cruise is actually doing it and carrying it with his own body. And there, I think that kind of like a little bit that Jesus complex comes in, that he has to like die almost for the movies with his own body, almost to absolve Hollywood of its own sins or something. I really see that big.
But it's like he was watching Marvel films and was seeing that everything was becoming more CG.
Everything is
more
just
CG,
like
more CG and dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to make this as humanly as possible. I'm going to break my ankle on every film.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it also just becomes a thing. Like, he breaks his ankle in. I can't even remember which one that is. Where he's
jumps to the
running.
building,
Yeah,
right?
he jumps to the
Right.
building, and then there's a. You can actually find this online.
Yeah, you could
which
actually see the
shouldn't be called
shot.
a blooper, but
Yeah.
you can actually see him breaking the ankle.
Yeah.
But of course, they make a thing out of this. On a regular movie, if somebody breaks their ankle, it's not really a point.
No,
There's
everybody's
not-
kind of like, that's kind of like a work
Yeah.
hazard.
That's stupid. Yeah, he must. How are studios even? Because what he's doing is absolutely something you couldn't do for like a long. He's the only guy that can actually get out of probably contracts that just because the studio will lawyer the fuck up for
Yeah.
you not to break your neck,
Well,
literally.
The thing is, and then he becomes connected to so many important parts of film history that we should absolutely mention, because this connects him to Jackie Chan, connects him to
Buster
Bruce Lee,
Keaton.
connects him to Buster Keaton. There's just like and to Howard Hawks and other people as well. There's like such a lineage of people that go all the way for what they want to show in front of the camera, and he does it in the most strange circumstances, which are mainstream studio Hollywood films
Right.
that are lawyered the fuck up and don't want you to do anything crazy anymore. These are studios that are making films with total control themselves. And then here you have a guy that has still so much power and so much weight that he can just say, no, we're going to do it my way and it's going to be crazy. And I mean, of course, these films are done with such great preparation and care. And if you see all the things that they do behind the scenes, most of it seems seemingly fine. But at least there's a guy that actually wants you to go to the movies and believe. And this belief, this is just kind of like the thing that I've latched onto a lot with him. And that kind of like harkens back maybe also to some of the films, Tom, that you were talking about of his earlier career. Like when I saw him for the first time in The Firm, or, later in Eyes Wide Shut, or especially in one of my favorite Tom Cruise films and probably my favorite Steven Spielberg film ever, and you referenced it earlier, War of the Worlds, which is just such a tremendous film.
8:30?
We said 8 o'clock.
Hello, Dad.
Get a hug?
Robbie's got a paper, which he's yet to begin.
I just gotta type it up.
You just gotta start writing it first. Take care of our kids.
You got nothing to worry about. That is so weird. The wind is blowing toward the storm. It's okay. Lightning doesn't strike twice.
Where's the thunder?
Robbie, you saw the lightning?
Yeah, 26 times on Lincoln Avenue.
You feel that?
But he's such a and that's the cool thing. Like many of these guys might be very vain, and we can be certain that Tom Cruise is a very vain man as well. However, he is such a sad fucking guy in that movie, and he pulls it off. Even though you look at Tom Cruise, you also believe that he's the most divorced guy ever that has to get his children to their mom during alien invasion. He pulls that off as well. So I'm kind of still, I guess, in this just free flowing appreciation of him, but it gets to the core of why he is at this point one of the few special actors that we have in mainstream America.
But there are two things here that are interesting. Like you have, of course, the camera. What you mean is the camera clearly loves him. He has a sort of, at least for me, if he's on screen, you have to watch him.
Yeah.
He's magnetic.
He's extremely magnetic. Yeah, and even though I think that's died down a bit, but it was harder in the period where the focus was really on the Scientology stuff, and on the Katie Holmes marriage, and him jumping on Oprah's couch, and him and that one video of him laughing and then clapping his hands, which is
just
the most
maniacal,
super maniacal fucking dude. It's weird to not also see that when you watch his films. You sometimes want to also, because you want to know the guy. When you see his films, he's portraying a character, but then when you're watching it, you're also thinking about who is Tom Cruise really. The weird thing is that, especially with a movie like Magnolia, where you have the feeling that there are things merging there, where the sort of the performative aspect of him outside of his acting career, if that makes sense, becomes this thing like what is Frank DJ Mackey's quote again?
Respect the cock and tame the cunt.
Please put this audio quote in and not me saying this. That's now staying in, I know. But then that suddenly really changed in recent years. Somewhere around Jack Reacher, the Jack Reacher films aren't really that good.
No, but they are
even though
capable.
And we talked about this on last episode, where Herzog is great in that film. That was really, really confusing for myself. Anyway, what did I want to say?
about his kind of like tarnished reputation and how some directors work with
it
it.
has now it has changed mainly due to his own accord. Like he's very aware now of the sort of bringing it back to a visceral blend of cinema where you can feel action in almost like a very old school 90s way.
Oh, 80s, 90s way, where
80s,
it's
90s
just
way,
like
yeah.
the physicality. But that's why, like, and I'm wondering what you guys think about that as well, because that's why, you know, maybe it's exaggerated, but maybe also not. Like, who else is there that still gives that kind of spectacle on such a level and, you know, is successful in it? And Tom is totally right that in doing so and finding that gap, maybe he really scrubbed off a lot of the blemishes of his reputation and became a more wholesome figure. I'm not sure how genuine the wholesomeness is, but nonetheless it stands, you know. When you look at him now, he stands for something different than when you looked at him at the beginning of the 21st century. But, you know, like, I painted a pretty dire picture of Hollywood, but don't you guys agree that there's something, the it factor is kind of missing in many movies nowadays?
And in movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think that there are many of this caliber that have such an impact and have such a sellability and such a magnetism as Cruise. But this might also just be very, very influenced by nostalgia.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
I agree with Tom that we don't really have movie stars anymore, but also just in music, I feel like we don't have pop stars anymore. Right. And with Tom Cruise, when I think about him now, I'm just like, he's the guy who's saving cinema, because that's basically what he's saying that he is, that he's bringing the audience back. And I mean, he is a really magnetic guy, and when you look at his film, you really want to stare at him. And I feel like Eyes Wide Shut is actually my favorite movie. And
nice.
I think that it has a lot to do with him. So,
well, and there you, again, that's the perfect example of a film, just like Magnolia, where you have a director that understands that they are working with Tom Cruise. And this is always very interesting to me when you have that power dynamic, because directors are not done, you know, but some of them have to be a bit more in service of the executive producer / actor, as Tom Cruise often is in his own films, you know. But then you have people that actually know how to take that really raw, unbridled energy that's part of their reputation and convert it into something much more layered and complex and meta. And I don't know, you know, because Eyes Wide Shut is probably slightly also responsible for the divorce of Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise.
Well,
but it revels in their like anxieties that they already had. And Kubrick is not a crazy guy. He understands that they had those anxieties, and I think he feeds off of them and converts it again back into movie magic.
And lest we forget, this was a film that took, I think, 3 years to make. They were like filming for such an incredibly long time. So there must have been like a lot of trust between Kidman and Kubrick and Cruise there.
Yeah.
And a lot of annoyance as well, probably.
Yeah, because I think they were already going through their issues.
Yeah, they already were in a pretty rough spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get thrust into a film that, as the friend of the show, Slavoj Žižek, says, is all about how male fantasy is just shit.
Yeah.
And he actually made them go into psychoanalysis treatments, right?
Yeah.
That can't be great.
That's pretty rough. Yeah. And then you have that, like, there's just shots in you know, Eyes Wide Shut that even for
Eyes
all
Wide
this...
Shut. Sorry about that.
Jesus, oh my God. But even like for all of its major set pieces and more like, you know, incredible scenes, just moments of him alone in a car with just his own anguish. Those are the moments that really get to me because you feel them. And that's crazy because he's like such a huge, like, I don't know, it's kind of like having, like with a musician or something, to see him in their most like skeletal form, to see like the bare essence of who they actually are. It's such a rare insight into somebody's creative, you know, state and emotional state as well. often these people are, of course, very reserved and have a very strong facade. So how much, talent and skill and sly, cunning wit does it take to actually break through that facade and see a bit of the raw Tom Cruise underneath the entire thing? That's fascinating to me.
There's even the thing with Tropic Thunder, right? Where he's playing that, I believe, a producer that he hated, but then a sort of... It's probably Harvey Weinstein, but...
This is Les Grossman. Who is this? This is Flaming Dragon! Oh, okay. Flaming Dragon. Fuckface. First, take a big step back and literally fuck your own face! Now, I don't know what kind of pan-Pacific bullshit power play you're trying to pull here, but Asia Jack is my territory. So whatever you're thinking, you better think again. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to head down there, and I will rain down on a godly fucking firestorm upon you. You're gonna have to call the fucking United Nations and get a fucking binding resolution to keep me from fucking destroying you. I am talking scorched earth, motherfucker! I will massacre you! I will fuck you up!
So he's apparently also has a sense of humor, which I don't know.
And probably has some bones to pick.
Apparently.
He has some bones to pick, and he knows how to. But he knows how to take a film and use it for his own good. And then occasionally you have a director that knows how to take him and use it for their good or something. It's an interesting kind of like power dynamic.
But in that sense, what do you now think there's the relationship between him and Quarry? Christopher Quarry, which is and the other director that he's now constantly working with, Joseph Kosinski.
I would say probably that
it's like he's found his bros or something.
Yeah,
or
I think it's a near kind of like, I feel like Quarry, he's the director of all the late Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah,
I think
and then Kosinski made the new one.
Yeah. But like all the stuff like Mission Impossible Fallout and stuff was McQuarrie, and then Kaczynski's doing the Dead Reckoning, I think.
Yeah. And important is to note that Christopher McQuarrie was the guy that made Valkyrie, but also the guy who wrote the screenplay for The Usual Suspects.
Exactly. But I think they have found an equal footing, because I feel like they are all kind of like collaborators working for the same goal, and the goal is very simple: is to make a good movie. And it's just like simple as that. But maybe that's kind of like the crazy thing is like how far have we sunken that the bar is that low, and that that brings me to Jim Cameron, because isn't he the other guy that is trying to do the same, but in his own way, with the Avatar movies, just to raise the bar of mainstream spectacle movies and actually make a fucking good film. It's as simple as that, but those are the two guys really doing it now.
But that's an interesting parallel, because in a sense that I get it, but in another way, Way of Water was the sort of, maybe I understand it was a mainstream tentpole film made in not the way that we see a lot of mediocre tosh being made by Hollywood, but then again, it doesn't have the sort of visceral old school Hollywood vibes.
I disagree. I think it has. It's the only film with that technology that does.
With that technology, okay, but it's a very technological film in that sense.
But I don't know.
I mean, CGI heavy in that sense.
But there's like, I don't know. Have you guys seen the Avatar movie?
Not the new one.
Oh,
I still have to.
I'm sorry for you guys. Like, that's a film you want to see in the cinema, because
or underwater.
There's just a couple of moments and fighting scenes and action scenes that have, all of them actually have the weight. They have the physicality. But most importantly, this is a guy that with Avatar said, this film will only make a profit once it cracks like 1 billion or something.
I think maybe
the risk taking is there as well.
Yeah, the risk taking is there, but maybe it's more, even though Avatar is a original IP, an original IP that he came up with, I think maybe it's also much more there somewhere. But the same thing with Mission Impossible is just also very much just the same IP. But it's done in such a way where almost that doesn't really matter. Where I have the feeling that especially like Marvel films or DC comic films and stuff like that, and a lot of superhero things are just the constant same narrative rehashing of the same thing, and then it's this guy, and then it's the Flash, and then it's this and
The
that.
Flash.
Yeah, well, yeah. How did the Flash not get canceled?
Is any of you gonna see the Flash? That's a big question as well.
I am not
a DC person.
Ooh.
I don't know. I also don't understand how there was a different Flash and now it's a new guy. I don't know.
Yeah, we need many Flashes. But so we've been ranting or raving a bit about, Cruise, but, we got the new Mission Impossible coming out. Is that then still like, if we separate all the nostalgia and whatnot, is that a film that you are still interested in seeing? Like, are you as thrilled as I am, or is that just my...
Probably not as thrilled as you are, seeing how you are smiling right now.
Fair enough. Okay, that's a guided question.
I mean, I don't mind watching it. I wouldn't run to the cinema to go see it, but I don't know. I think I'm still a bit of a Tom Cruise skeptic.
What makes you the skeptic?
But I realized I do very much agree with the magnetism and the status that he has, because when we decided to do this episode, I thought, Tom Cruise, I know him. I have seen all his films, and then I went to look at all the things that he's done, and I have seen barely anything. And that was very interesting to me, that I feel like I have seen all of it, and I know him very well, but I have seen barely anything, which I think is a testament to how visible and sort of knowable he feels in our current times.
And I think depending on which films you haven't seen, there's a couple that have like a less clean image of him that are often the most fascinating. One that nowadays more flies under the radar, it seems, is Vanilla Sky. I'm not sure if you've seen that one.
What do I owe this pleasure?
The pleasure of Sophia.
I would spend the rest of my life with that girl, man.
I am not going in there.
Oh yeah, good night.
My heart going boom, boom, boom. Grab your things, I've come to take you home.
Beautiful. How much for?
One kiss. That smile is gonna be the end of me.
David Ames.
You're following me.
I just felt bad at your party.
When did you stop caring, David?
Slow down, Julie.
When you sleep with someone, your body makes a promise whether you do or not. Do you believe in God?
Yeah, that's such a cool film. It's a remake, actually, of another fantastic film, Abre los ojos. But Vanilla Sky is just as good as the original, mostly because of Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise in it. But that's the film that...
Hey, you give Penelope Cruz some...
of course, why not? Yeah, of course. No, true, you're right. But he has crazy movies. He's got some, And then one of my favorites still, The Color of Money, the Martin Scorsese Pool movie. He's so young and cocky and he has so much bravura, and the camera loves it and he loves it and you see it, and that kind of dynamic where they're both feeding each other, yes, go, act more, and he's acting more, and it's yes, film me, that kind of
but
energy.
That's a meeting of two. Because
Great,
Newman is also the epitome of something that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, this kind of old masculine cool,
This is what you'd want to give Tom Cruise for when he's even older, is become Paul Newman,
Well, the passing of the baton, and that maybe is a good bridge to talk about this queer kind of state where Tom Cruise is in now, where he still wants to save cinema, but at the same time is, I think, also getting self-reflexive and aware in his movies of his own age. I mean, he's 60 and he knows I really have the feeling that he wants to literally die during a film.
Not just break an ankle.
No,
just
I
break
feel
it all.
Doing a stunt, preferably.
Yes, I feel like he wants to actually die on camera. That is basically what he's setting himself up to. And if you watch his later films, most... I think most poignantly in Top Gun Maverick, you really again feel that passing of the baton moment for him, where he has to also acknowledge listen, guys, I am getting old and there's a new generation and it can't only be Tom Cruise anymore. And that entire film is set up that it deals with his legacy and then has to find a place for that amidst a young generation that doesn't see the same values or merits as he does. And I think that film did that very sophisticatedly, but is in that sense kind of like a really strong reminder that he knows that he's approaching the end of the star power. You know, he can't do that till he's 80. He's not Joe Biden, you know, he can't stay in power till 83 or something.
I have a question, because I asked you beforehand also why Top Gun Maverick is such a good film.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying now that it is because it's about Tom Cruise and it's only because he is in it and it's about him?
That's such a good question. Wow. Yes. Yeah, it has to be. I mean, okay, so with Top Gun Maverick, I think it's about three people. It's about Tony Scott, who passed away tragically. It's about Val Kilmer, who is terminally ill, and everybody knows that. And he's
Tony Scott, the director, by the way.
Tony Scott is the director of the original Top Gun, who tragically passed away. And then it's about, you know, Val Kilmer, who we know is sick and is approaching death. And then it's about Tom Cruise in the midst of that. Because Val Kilmer in the original was kind of like his whole, you know, buddy and a very close friend.
His wingman, in a way.
Yeah, his wingman, yeah. And this film has to reckon with one loss, one anticipated loss, and with one person that feels, I think, that he has to already make the gesture that we won't have him forever. And that combination of those three things, it's like it's a sad meta story of the film, but the film knows it. It's a very self-reflexive film. It's a very conscious remake, and it hits all the right notes and knows when to, you know, tactically circumvent some other stuff. And yeah,
and the best thing about it is that the way you describe it now, if you haven't seen this film, you would think that it's incredibly freaking sentimental.
It is, but it is a very sentimental
yes,
movie.
Yes, but in a way where it's very where it's still heartfelt for some reason.
Yeah, but like, okay, but wait, don't get me wrong. And I think a lot of people know, like, on the record, sentimentality can be heartfelt. I love sentimentality. Like, I wish more films would be. Isn't the big problem maybe that I was talking about with these, you know, with the shitty ass films, isn't that they are not heartfelt? And sentimentality can be heartfelt.
Wait. You saw the new Indiana Jones film.
Yeah.
Which also apparently has a passing of the baton.
Yeah,
thing
it tries to do
it.
the same thing, but
so what is because the thing is, if you, that's what I wanted to say, is like, if you describe Top Gun Maverick and the passing of the baton thing, whatever, blah 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 blah, and the heartfelt scene of Goose, not being able to talk, and then them because Kilmer has throat cancer, and then them hugging, and that. Well, I was tearing up a bit, and I'm not even a really big fan of the original Top Gun. I was like, why is it different? Why it's been done before? We're constantly doing this because IP needs to travel from one generation to the next. So a property like Indiana Jones needs to now go to my brothers and their brothers, etc., etc. So we can like milk the cow for the ages. What's different?
Well, the new Indiana Jones, I think
sucks balls.
First of all, it does. My God, it's a bad movie. But the reason why it's bad is because I think it thinks that if it can just play the lip service, that it's already doing enough. Whereas it's not questioning, it's not adding, and it's not being sincere. It's a film that tries to rekindle an old flame. It's kind of like having, you know, a prior love affair, you know, and things you already kind of like died out. And then there's one more frantic push from one side of like, no, let's try to light that fire again. Let's try, you know. But then if it's not reciprocal, if it's not met, then it's just unwarranted and kind of a shame of everybody's time and effort and energy. And I feel that is very much the case with Indiana Jones, where they're basically also, big mistake, are trying to shit on the fourth Indiana Jones, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is highly underrated movie.
No, it is not, but please continue.
But they're trying to say this film basically stinks and we're gonna do it better, but they don't. So it's already like disingenuous in at its heart. And here you have the rare mainstream movie Top Gun Maverick that actually knows how, like you say, I don't have any feelings for the original Top Gun. I don't really care for that film that much. And then you have a film that actually so acutely knows how to posit itself amongst us, the viewers, and them, the creators. And it just clicks. And they keep it small and simple and real. They keep it mostly real. And it's just, it could be the way that they shoot it. It could be the way that they act.
Has it to do with stakes? Because I now suddenly realize that I can mention the best superhero film ever made, which relates which is a movie with stakes, which is a movie with imminent death. Death is in a film that is there to entertain, which is Logan. A movie that I really, really love, which is the Wolverine, the end of an era Hugh Jackman film.
Yeah, and directed by James Mangold, who now fucked Indiana Jones into.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
What's happening there?
It's like, who's in control, you know? The studio was like, oh, we need to make an Indiana Jones that exactly feels like the old one, but you can't copy that shit anymore, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a different film. And the Top Gun movie, to go back to your question, Maverick, it is not like it's replicating some parts or it's echoing, but it's not copying. And this is a massive difference. That you actually honor the thing of the past without actually trying to make this silly pastiche. And it's an aura thing mostly, and it's so hard to put in words. I was writing a review about the new Indiana Jones, and I was like, God, how do I fucking even describe in words like how disappointing it is to see a thing that you've known and you kind of loved, I guess, and just see it doing all the things that supposedly should be right, but then they're not. And then you're like, okay, but so it's like, what's the it thing, you know?
It's
what's
an aura thing. I like that.
It's aura.
It's that's interesting. And then still, that can be different for everybody. I know people who thought like Maverick didn't hit them didn't hit a special note with them. I mean,
I was one of those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's where I wanted to go.
Yeah. How's that? But maybe it's because it very much feels like you get this response to Top Gun Maverick if you have this connection to Tom Cruise himself and his whole life story and his career as an actor. And I don't really have that much. So maybe
it's an entirely a meta movie. That's true. But at the same time, it's a movie about a guy that is incapable of expressing one simple thing. It's a moment of regret in his life, you know, and it's kind of like fleshed out in the film. And then they do it by doing the acts of flying a jet plane.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I like the movie. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it. I just did not understand why it was nominated for 6 Oscars. That was just a step too far for me, you know?
Yeah, no, I think I could make the case that, okay, first of all, on the technical level, here's a film that makes you believe.
That I understand,
you know?
yes.
But then also on the story level, I was believing. And maybe, you know, with the Oscars, it's an entire genre in itself, you know, like making you have the Oscar bait as kind of a description of a kind of movie that would do well with the Academy voting body. And here's a film that also plays a kind of lip service, but does it in a way that I am believing. And there's many Oscar-nominated films that I don't believe. One of the stronger ones in recent years that actually won Best Picture is a film like Green Book, where you're wondering, what the fuck is going on? How are we so delusional that we believe that this is, I remember like the Oscar ceremony, and then the day after I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna see Green Book to actually see what the hell this is all about. I'm sitting in the cinema and like, this fucking stinks. This is so fucking bad.
Yeah, I agree.
But I have those gripes with our like talking about controversial Oscar winners. I have those gripes with Damien Chazelle as well, and La La Land.
I believe La La Land.
Sorry,
I love La La Land.
Okay, that's interesting.
I love it too,
and I hate musicals. Like I can't stand them, but La La Land just took me away.
That's so interesting because that's a film that I can't stand because I'm distrustful of that film in a strange way. It's hard to put in words as well, but I just feel that
there's no imminent death. That's eventually, kinda.
I think maybe what I'm hearing now, a difference between how we like or watch movies. I like films like La La Land that don't even pretend that a film is real. And they really go with it. They're like, a film's not real, you're not watching reality, and we go into a totally different way. We do things that can't happen in real life, which arguably Mission Impossible also can't happen in real life, but which is... those are the kinds of films that I like. Totally they're like actively like, I'm telling you a story, I'm not telling you reality.
But I think what Hugo and I really agree, and I'm just going to put words in your mouth, is that it's not necessarily that we want the movie to be real.
No.
It's the fact that it isn't real, but makes you feel something that is real. And that's what I really like about the whole cruise thing. And that's something that I can... for some weird reason, feel G-force while watching Top Gun Maverick.
No, and it's like, I think I can even make it more specific because now it gets interesting.
Finally.
An hour in?
Yeah. I want a film to, like, I don't need a film to, like, what you say is true, and I think there's a difference in taste there, but ultimately what I want... And what I want to see conveyed is that the film itself also believes. I want to believe in some way whatsoever, but I want the film to believe with me. And that is maybe the thing that I am missing too much.
Okay, I understand that.
So this is still about Jesus and faith.
That is the thing. That is the thing. You know, if movies, for us are like the temple,
the
you know,
church,
like then I want to actually not be bamboozled into, you know, a sermon. I want to actually feel that the sermon comes right from the heart, and that is then maybe and that comes back to the sentimentality thing. I love sentimentality when the film itself also believes it, and that will immediately make me cry because I want to believe with the film. And if they give it to me, I'm like, yes, okay, let's fucking go.
Then I'm gonna sort of try to connect an anecdote from. So we were both in Cannes this year. You didn't go to the Rendezvous. Oh no, the Rendezvous was last year, right? The Rendezvous with Cruise was last year.
Oh yeah, I wasn't there.
No, you weren't there.
Yeah.
A friend of mine went there, and he's a big. Well, he's this on the same level as our sort of fandom and our appreciation of the strange icon that the man is in this temple or church of ours.
The man being Tom Cruise?
The man being Tom Cruise, not my friend. No. He could be though. But still, he was sitting there, and so this typical rendezvous with somebody interview, blasé questions, not really diving into like
working with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, or like, are you still seeing Katie Holmes? And no, not those questions. But he said, like, okay, so first of all, there's a guy coming on stage who is 160.
Yeah,
he's like incredibly short man.
Yeah,
so
he's not a towering figure.
He's like I think Danny DeVito and him are almost the same height. Which is strange because
it's movie magic.
The magnetism of this man is there is a presence, so it must be at least the guy that's 180
and the convenient camera position,
exactly,
so
and a small box that he can stand on. But he said, like, so the interview starts, and after like 3 questions, the interview just becomes this sort of loop of him saying, I am here for people's entertainment. And like the entire thing, people should look this video up. The way he accepts his MTV award for, I think it's for Top Gun Maverick, is him flying an airplane and saying like, I'm doing this for you. And like, blah, blah, blah. See, and that's what the thing that you say, see you at the movies. And then he does a small looping, which is just fucking baller, but also like you are so aware of your weird role. But then like the friend of mine said, like, what happens when you're watching him is you're starting to wonder, is there still anything else? Is there behind the role that he now found for himself, is there really a guy still in the jacket or in the shell that is the icon of Cruise? Is there a real self still there? Or has he now become this, he's sacrificing himself for the art because he doesn't have anything else anymore?
Is he like the Son or the Holy Spirit is basically the question.
No, because it relates to what you said, like, will he die in the armor, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he even really wants that because there's nothing left.
I genuinely believe that
I have the feeling that he has just become a reflecting pool of what we demand of him, and that's what he gives back to us, like this visceral blend of cinema. But behind the curtain, there's not, behind the mask in Eyes Wide Shut, there's not a real man anymore, or a real self. I mean, maybe I'm making this, I'm projecting this already also onto him, but the friend of mine like really succinctly said, like, it's so strange that you can't, and of course such an interview doesn't really allow that. There's nothing to latch onto. There's no human behind the cruise, which is so odd. But then again, maybe that's fine because that's him being there for us.
Yeah.
Even though that's sad for him just as Cruise himself.
Wow.
Sorry about this.
No, it's good. It's good because it gets at the heart of celebrity.
Yeah.
You know, it's the raw material.
Wonder if this is what makes him the last movie star. So is this what is necessary to be a movie star? Like a true movie star?
But it's just as tragic as the career in the 90s and 2000s of Britney Spears was, and how the demise of Michael Jackson was, and of many other people. Like, you have to be almost of, like, it is a Napoleonic almost enterprise to move mountains like that, be it through, you know, in Napoleon it's the realm of the politics, and here it's the realm of culture and entertainment, but it's the same struggle nonetheless. And it is ultimately always a tragic position, as we once had the court jester
Charlie Sheen.
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah. Now we have these kind of like fallen icons that have to have the weight of the world seemingly for them on their shoulders. And yeah, I guess it really then depends on which avenues you can find within your career to channel that in a way that still seems to make sense. And maybe that is the lasting power at this point of him, that he's found those through the Mission Impossible movies, through Top Gun Maverick, through a couple of other things maybe. And maybe that is all we can wish for, because it's the same with, you know, I think Britney Spears is a good comparison. Like, people are also trying to take away the places where she can express that meta level, and then there's nothing left except for the tragic figure.
Yeah.
And then that just has this spiraling trajectory. So this sense of control is very important. And maybe he has mastered at this point the art of being still in control of who the vehicle of Tom Cruise is, as if he is the jet plane himself, you know? He's piloting himself at this point, maybe.
But it sounds like he found that control by completely letting go of himself, right?
Yeah, and ultimately maybe wanting to,
sad.
like, yeah, I don't know.
But there's a great deal of sadness that I think that if that wasn't there, I don't think we would be talking about him today.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think what I mean is that, because we're sad for him, but we're also sad about the fact that he is the last movie star and that other people are not giving us this. So do we want are stars to give themselves up for their art.
I think that's a
for
double-edged
us.
sword, because in a sense, like the thing that the industry has done, or the way that they handle stars, might, in a sense, be better for them, although it doesn't necessarily bring us the same vibes or magnetism that strange ethereal thing that we can look up to as Cruise would do. So maybe it's better for people, but maybe it's not necessarily better for the art. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy that says you need to fucking die for your art and that's the only way you can make art. Not at all, but
isn't it amazing? And that could be kind of like a concluding thought. Isn't it amazing that we're still repeating patterns that are like, he has a messiah complex, and we're like, it's as if cinema is thrusting us back 2,000 years in the past. You know, this kind of like, we have all these kind of like micro Jesuses walking around in the 20th and 21st century that have that seemingly same weight. Isn't that also just what makes everything that we do more human? It makes me understand religion more, actually, in a kind of like historic perspective. And I don't want to lament the things as they are or the things that aren't, because we have to do with the facts that we have. You know, this is the state of cinema now, and we have at least one person here that is doing his crazy shit to actually make movies that are worthwhile to buy. I mean, the stakes are also like, it's just about having a film in the summer that you want to spend $15 for to actually go and see. But that already feels like an integral part of life, that we at least have a movie that we want to see every year. I don't know. It's as simple as that. So it actually comforts me as well that this is the loop that we're in, because then I think that's then just humanity, and this is just one example of it. Somehow it gives me comfort to know that we can never escape those problems almost, and then we can just at least celebrate the people that actually make the most of it.
Wow. That got very existential.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Well, I guess I'll be spending my summer watching all Tom Cruise films then.
As we all do.
If you want to dive back into Cruise's work, in honor of Bar Strangelove's reopening, Lab is screening the 1988 film Cocktail, starring Tom Cruise, for which you can now find tickets in our show notes or visit lab111.nl. In case you missed it, last episode we talked about influential filmmaker Werner Herzog, who incidentally played opposite Cruise in Jack Reacher. Make sure to listen to it if you haven't yet. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on whichever platform you're listening on and share so more people can find us. Make sure to subscribe and stay up to date with all new releases. If you want to join the conversation, feel free to send any questions at celebratingcinema@lab111.nl and follow us at lab111 on Instagram. As always, we provide show notes, including all films mentioned at celebratingcinema.com. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Yvonne GC, with music from Hugo Emmerzaal and artwork by Studio FFF. Bye!